A random variable is essentially like a placeholder. So when you perform any sort of experiment, you're going to assign to this random variable the outcome of it. Whatever you have outside here in the real world, we're going to assign that to our random variable. It can be written down as an X or something like that. Usually it's a capital letter. So what we are doing essentially here is, let's say you are throwing a die or flipping a coin. The outcome of that experiment, you're going to assign that to a random variable. And you might be saying, why is it that they call it random? Well, the reality is that a variable is something that, like the name states, it varies. If it wouldn't be a variable, it would be a constant. So let's say you have an equation, let's say x, let's say you have an equation, something like x plus 5 equals y. So let's say you have something like a function. Let's say f of x equals, let's say 5x plus 10. This x variable is a random variable. Random variables can be discrete when you are random variables can be discrete Here it's an example when you can count it, like counting marbles or flipping a coin or throwing a dice, something like that. So you can count the outcome. Random variables can be either discrete or continuous. Discrete variables, examples of this is when you can count it. This is the main key point for you to not get sidetracked when they ask you questions. Remember, if it's discrete, you can count it, like number of marbles, something like that. You actually can count the number of marbles inside a bag. This is a good example of a discrete variable. If it's a continuous random variable, it's something like a height or temperature, something that you can measure. So here, we get this in a different color. You can count it. Remember this, like I said, because in statistics problems, it starts getting pretty complicated, pretty easy, and pretty fast. So when you understand these key points, it makes it easy for you to get a grasp exactly what they're asking you. Remember, discrete, you can count it, like number of marbles. Continuous, you can measure it, like temperature or height. The next two concepts are experiments and events. So what's the difference? When you are performing an experiment, it's a trial, like throwing a dice or a coin. The outcome of a trial is an event. You got a 6 or you got tails. So once again, performing an experiment is throwing a dice or a coin. And here, the event itself, it's the result that you got from running the experiment. When conducting an experiment, there are already existing models that you can use that serve as a function, like a black box. Here we're going to write it down as a white black box, if that makes sense. But I think you get the idea. The whole idea is that when you are performing an experiment and want to know the probability of a specific outcome, so here you are going to use existing functions that serve exactly that purpose. All you gotta do, and this comes from practice, is understanding the type of experiment that you are conducting so that you can choose the correct function. In statistics, it's called a distribution. So essentially what you're going to say here and state is that your random variable follows, use this squiggly line, a distribution, a specific one. And depending upon the type of experiment that you are conducting, you are going to choose one of these. This is not an exhaustive list, but it serves as a starting point for you to start your studies in statistics. So how do you choose between distributions? Let's say you have a problem and they don't state the type of distribution that your random variable follows. How do you go about and solve the problem? Well, the first starting point is understanding the type of random variable you have. Like we talked about in previous videos, your x random variable can either be discrete or it can be continuous. And this makes sense when you start relating it to the distributions. So if your random variable is discrete, you use discrete distributions. If your random variable is continuous, you use continuous distributions. So now we need to start understanding a little bit more in regards to each type of distribution and exactly what its purpose is so that you can choose the correct one.